Welcome everybody to the second day of the Goldmoney Asian Rapid. I still can't get over how funny that company name is, by the way. Hope you're all having a great Sunday, unless you're watching this on Monday morning. World is a big place, so some of you are like 14 hours ahead. I'm going to take you through the games once again. It's the second day of the prelims, so it's a bunch of games, 40 games. I've picked 5 of my favorite. I've tried to show some games and people that I haven't shown yet. In the last recap, a few people were upset that, you know, I didn't cover some specific people. Look, folks, I'm trying my best. There's a lot of interesting games. I want to keep these videos about 30 minutes. So I'm going to show this game first, Carlsen Giri, because this is the reason why Anish Giri's on the thumbnail. And once I show you this game, I'll tell you why I put him on the thumbnail. And also the Faceless Destroyer, we will figure that out later. So e4, e5, obviously going to be a very boring game. Wrong. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. We have a gioco pianissimo with castles and c3. Whenever white plays very slowly with this buildup of pawns, this is called pianissimo. Castles, rook e1, and now the modern way of playing this position, which is a4. a4 has a couple of purposes. First of all, it shuts down b5. Second of all, you just show your opponent that you know how to play the crab. a4, h4. At any moment, you might play the crab against them. And the other idea is that you just actually straight up want to take space on the queen side, which is what Magnus does. But Anish doesn't give him much time to sit around. He plays the move knight to g4, setting up an attack right here. And Magnus plays rook e2. And basically white is arguing, first of all, just in case any beginners watching are confused, this trade is 9 times out of 10 better for the person getting the knight and the bishop. Instant replay, you get a pawn and a rook, and I get a bishop and a knight. Bishop and knight is just better than rook and pawn. 6 is not equal to 6, okay? Welcome to GothamChess recaps. But we have king a chain. This idea we've actually seen before. We saw it yesterday in the game between Vidit and Ariban. Oh, you don't remember? Oh, you didn't watch yesterday's recap. Oh, you did watch yesterday's recap. You can't remember anything chess related if like 2 minutes go by. Don't worry, you're not alone. I'm the same. Try to learn an opening, 5 minutes later, don't even know what's going on. So f5. So both sides are trying to play on their respective flanks. And optically, this actually just looks better for Anish. Because again, the pressure building up here, the opening of the rook, the queen's ability to just maneuver over here. Bishop b3, bishop d7 finishing development. Rook a2 and queen e8. And the point of queen e8 is that, again, you want to go out this way. You can also go to h6, as I just said, but h5 is also fine. Not to mention that in some lines, you never know. You never know when you need to be flexible with which side of the board you want to pressure. Takes, knight f1. And basically, Magnus wants to plot this in here. Anish plays bishop back to e6, offering to trade off white's arguably only piece doing anything, and he does. And meanwhile, Magnus has arrived on the queen side, so Magnus is attacking the knight on c6, so Anish decides to move the knight out of the way. In chess, it's not checkers. You don't need to take something just because you can. In fact, in checkers, that's quite literally the rule. In chess, that would just open up the position beneficially for your opponent, so instead Anish just backs out. d4, knight g6. Now, this little transfer has just given Anish another attacking piece, so he's happy. c4, I mean, I didn't ask, I'm assuming he's happy. e4. Anish now has 1, 2, 3, 4, and maybe 5. Like, we're going to call that 4.5. That bishop just needs the center pawn to get out of the way, and it's part of the attack again. And here Magnus Carlsen played knight g3. And his logic was that, well, I'm pressuring Anish's pawn, and if Anish takes, he's going to lose his queen. So obviously, he doesn't want to take the knight. Instead, Anish will figure out something else. But Anish already has one queen in his life. And that's his wife, the mother of his 2 children. And he doesn't need another one. So pawn takes f3. Listen. 2 times in a row, Anish has now sacrificed the queen. And this one looks pretty devastating. Rook takes e8. And actually, Magnus Carlsen is under some serious problems here. Knight h4 is coming. The pawn on f3 is really brutal. If you take it, that doesn't solve much of anything. Rook to e1 still arrives, king to g2, and this looks like straight up checkmate, but the bishop would take. You would go here. If I take this, knight h4, knight f4, I mean, this game is over. So now it's up to Magnus Carlsen to desperately defend this position. He comes back with the queen to protect the back rank. And by the way, both players have about like a minute here, so very low time. Anish plays knight to h4. The horses have arrived. Anish most certainly does not have the horses in the back. he's got the horses in the front, knight h4, knight g4, and takes on g2. I mean, he's right there. He is a move away from beating Magnus Carlsen by sacrificing his queen, making it into the YouTube video of GothamChess, making it into the YouTube video of Agadmatar. I mean, you name it. Anish Giri's playing this game like he wants to end up in a YouTube video. And look, look at where we've arrived. Now here, apparently the best move according to the computer is to take rook e1 check sacrifices the rook, and then you have this, and the game. An endgame where white is severely overextended with his pawns. But Magnus Carlsen plays this move, and now the position is -5, emphasis on the v, and knight takes f2 here is the knockout punch. And it's the knockout punch because of a very savage computer line. First of all, if you take this, it looks like you can, then I absolutely devastate you. Remember I told you all that bishop needed is to get this pawn out of the way? Well, it did. And it's because of this, rook e1, it's like mate. It's literally mate in a few moves. This is a mate coming. But by the way, just you can make a bishop. If you really want some style points, you can make a bishop. So this is just very bad. And if you don't take and instead you go this way, then the absolutely gross computer line here, again this move, and it's like, well, I don't understand. G1 queen or bishop takes and knight f3. You fork the king and the queen. If Anish found this, I would have probably like commissioned the local, city in the Netherlands to build him a statue. But Anish didn't see that. He didn't see that. Instead, he took on e2. I mean, low time. Now, he's still on the verge of winning this game. Magnus plays bishop e3 because, again, knight h3 is coming in g1 queen. You're not going to sacrifice, and he plays bishop e3. And you would think that taking the pawn with a check, promoting and winning the bishop would deliver Anish a winning position. But the best move here, according to computer, is knight to d3. Why? Well, if you take, then again, I have this, and this, and this. It's these tricky knight tricks where you end up with the fork. And by the way, if you don't take this, well, what do you do? Like, actually, like, what do you do? Make a move. If you play king h2, for example, knight to e1. And something is coming to f3, and if you take here. So basically, this is the threat. And the queen, the king, and the interaction of these four pieces just cannot be prevented. For example, knight to e4, rook f1 is now coming. So knight d3 completely paralyzes Magnus's position. I mean, if you played knight d3, I would have commissioned the statue. Instead, we have all of this, and Anish is up a rook, and the bishop, and the knight, and some pawns for a queen. But this one move, and it shows you all the problems of black's position. The back rank, the rook is the only protector. All these pawns are soft. If you win all those pawns, you're going to be winning. And this bishop never actually activated. And the problem with knights is sometimes they have to stay together. They can't go apart. You're going to lose one of them. So we have this, and all Magnus needed to save this was two pieces. And he does it in a very flashy way. There's only one way to save this position, and it's to check and give perpetual check on these two squares. So knight f7 is a threat. So, of course, you have to take, and we repeat moves. Now, listen, Anish Giri does not buy into the memes here of being the draw master, okay? That was a great game. I had to show it. And it's funny, I put him on the thumbnail because I woke up at like 8 in the morning, and I was looking at the game right when he sacked the queen. I told my thumbnail guy, link is in the description if you want to follow him on Instagram. He made a brand new Instagram if you want to support my thumbnail guy. And I was like, we got to make him on the thumbnail, and then they drew the game, and I was like, you know what, it's fine. Which takes me to game number 2. This is a game between Daniel Dubov and Salem Saleh. Salem Saleh is from the UAE, strongest player from there, high 2700 rated player, also like the coolest name ever, Arabic Falcon. Falcons are mad cool. I don't know the difference between like Falcon, Eagle, Hawk, Vulture. There's like one more. But anyway, and he's playing Dubov, so obviously this is going to be an exciting game. We have d5. Takes, and takes. Now takes is not... Taking on d5 is not super common. Normally, white moves the e-pawn or plays like queen b3 even in some positions. But knight takes d5, and he just plays b3. And basically, all Dubov wants is to finish his development like this. Active bishop. But this move order is bad. Bad. I mean, he wouldn't play this in classical and rapid. It's fine. It's bad because black can just take the whole center. This is the problem. And black can actually just attack white straight away, because you are allowing my queen to stand in the middle. There's no knight to attack it, there's no bishop to attack it, so my queen's just going to stand in the middle. Knight to e5, f6, and we have a little ring around the rosy here. We have knight f3, knight e5, knight c4, knight back to e3. And by the way, this knight is actually quite well placed. It's blocking the pawn, and now Dubov is just going to develop around it. However, Salem plays bishop to e6, and then he plays f5. And this position optically is very complicated. Extremely complicated. Now, to make it even more complicated, here are both players castling on opposite sides. Let the circus begin. So, you can either attack the other player like this, but right now you're really unequipped. You are not equipped whatsoever to create a queenside attack. The second you push this pawn, I am a pawn up now, and you are in a bad position. And yeah, a3 is just a bad move. So instead he plays queen c2, and he's preparing to play f3, and he will play f3 very soon. He plays a queen c2, waiting move. Salem gets his king out of the way, defends the queen side, gets off the c file so that both these pieces are enabled in their movement. Knight c4, and folks, how do you create an attack on the person who's castled on the other side? h5! I feel like every single time h5 is played, the clouds open up and the chess gods, you know, you hear like a like one of those, like h5, there it is. Knight e5, takes, king goes to a8. The problem is that more pieces are getting traded, and actually what ends up happening is that both attacks sort of lose steam. So watch, rook d3 offers a trade of rooks. He plays bishop to e7. Again, it's not checkers. You don't have to take just because you can. He defends his rook. We have this, takes, and queen h5. And first of all, queen h2 is not even mate, but Dubov decides to deal with it anyway and actually turn the h file as a weapon against his opponent. So he plays king to f2. Only Dubov would play king f2, by the way. I don't think there's another human on earth who in this position would play king f2. Only Dubov, maybe Salem. We have bishop d5, takes. So now we just kind of have an endgame. It's not really both players attacking each other, but still a tremendous amount of imbalance. Pawns are scattered, pieces are scattered, kings are on opposite sides. Ultimately, in the endgame, kings need to run to the middle. Black's king is in no position to do that. And here, Dubov plays this. Now, that actually kind of looks like a mouse slip. It looks like he preferred to play queen c3, defending his bishop. However, he plays queen to c4, which looks on the surface like it straight up hangs a bishop. But it kind of doesn't, because you have queen g8 and a back rank. Now, I don't know. I wasn't here watching the games. I was running errands, so I didn't actually see this, so I don't know if it was a mouse slip or not. But in this position, after bishop f8, queen f8, and rook back, e2 is hanging, and so is the queen, and white is lost. So I don't know if Dubov blundered this or not, but Salem took this pawn instead of the bishop, so I don't know. King e1, rook d8. Maybe he was like, well, he mouse slipped, I'll win a pawn, the game will continue. Although if you're gonna continue the game against the guy who mouse slipped, just put him out of his misery. So Dubov now down a pawn with his king stuck in the middle, goes on a counterattack. Of course, it's never too late to straight up hang back rank mate where you have to lose all your pieces and still get checkmated. So please don't do that. So queen e8 back, bishop d6, takes, and g6. And black is still a pawn up, and now has to win this endgame. Rook f3, a6. Now there are no back rank problems. Rook d3, now there are really no back rank problems, because the king is not on the back rank. And now a very nice move from Salem. How do you activate your queen here? Well, obviously you don't move it forward. That's very 2020. This is 2021. We go to the corner, from whence we see everything. I don't even think that that is a figure of speech, but I am a chess streamer, not an English major. Rook d7, queen a1 check, king to f2. Dubov is doing the best that he can. He is going to go try to deliver a mate, and run away with his king. The problem is that actually there is no mate. There is actually not just no mate, there is no way for Dubov to even attack that pawn. I guess he can go to f7. But he should not do that, because then he will get checkmated far sooner, actually literally on the next move on queen c2. So a4 played, rook g3, queen e3 check, rook g2, and well, I mean, you've got everything you want. Now you just got to push one pawn. It's a very nice move. f3 is coming. Notice that the active queen patrolling all of this is also protecting the only weakness in black's position. And it was on move 45 that after rook g1 check, Dubov resigned. There's not much else he can do. If he moves his king up, I take with check. I trade queens, and I make a queen of my own. So Saleh with a very convincing victory. Credit to Saleh. Defeats Dubov with the black pieces. Mouse slip or not, I mean, that was just a very fun game. Now, I will take you to the game between Vidit and Gukesh. Gukesh, one of the youngest grandmasters in the world. And I told you today I would be trying to feature some of these players whose games I didn't maybe get to feature as much. So this is the next game. We have a Queen's Gambit declined with a6. Very common way of playing. Basically, you want white to develop naturally, to take and expedite the move b5 before you develop any other pieces. The problem with playing a6 is that white can just take, and now your a6 looks a little bit stupid, but this is kind of one of the things that black does. And a6 could be useful in the future to play moves like b5 and take space on the queen side. So I've played this with both sides. I hate it for both sides. I don't understand it for both sides, which is why I hate it. Takes, queen b3 attacks the d5 pawn and the b7 pawn. Which pawn is more valuable? Of course, the a7 pawn. You cannot lose your rook. So, sorry, the b7 pawn. So he plays rook a7 to defend it. Now the move knight takes d5 looks good. But I think it just leads to a bad position for white after queen d8. And you can defend your knight, but, I mean, good luck. You do have this move, which attacks the rook and gets out of the way. But believe it or not, this is actually completely fine for black and very dangerous for white. Bishop b4 is coming, queen a5 is coming. Blech. So instead of that, we have a3. Queen back. And now, folks, the clouds are about to open up for us. h4. I don't actually know what this move accomplishes. I think he's trying to play knight g5, and I think Gukesh believed him, so he played h6. Gukesh played a baby crab in this game. He didn't play the full crab with a5, h5. He played baby crab. Queen c2, bishop d6, and we have e4. e4 is a very dangerous move for black. If you just ignore me with the move c6, well, then your knight is not going to get developed very easily. I take space in the center. Your rook is just a big moron on a7. And bishop d3 is coming. I can always attack you when maybe f4, pawn attack in the future. So Gukesh decides to take and plays a very professional move. You would think that he wants to castle. He actually does not want to castle at all because he will get obliterated. So instead he plays king f8. And actually this move is totally okay for him. Now, he will need a few moves to get consolidated, with g6 and king g7 maybe, and, well, Vidit is not intending to give him any time to consolidate. Knight d7, knight e5, queen e7, f4. Position looks breathtaking for Vidit. And Vidit's just a breathtaking guy, period. So, of course, he plays breathtaking chess. So it's up to Gukesh to fight back here. Knight comes to f6, queen backs up, and Gukesh creates counterplay and confusion with the move c5. dc5, and you would think that he would take back like this, but no! He takes the knight instead, making Vidit's pawns blockade his own pieces. And now he comes back, and both these pawns are under fire. You cannot protect both of them. It is impossible. You can create a danger level concept, but then I would just take your pawn with my queen. So, tough position. The best move is to give away the e-pawn and solidify this pawn, and then use the open files on the center. Solidify this, play the 3 on 2, and use the opening of the e-file against your opponent. Vidit kinda does that by solidifying that pawn and giving him this. It would have been a little bit better to do it maybe with just rook d6, because apparently if you take this, there's some tactics with knight d5, which are very good. So now the knight is hanging, the queen is hanging. If you take on d5, I have this hitting everybody, which is very bad. Rook d6 would have been a very nice, it's just the aesthetic move. You just, bip, now you deal with my rook. But he plays queen f2, and he puts his knight on d6, which optically is also very decent. But here, Gukesh creates another creative way of counterplay by playing h5. Now h5 is a big boy move. H5 is a very big boy move. It's a move that's like, I belong on this level, and I want to activate my rook like this. And he does exactly that. Now, Vidit brings both rooks to the center. Gukesh rotates the queen over to c7, pressuring the pawn on c5. And exactly what I told you all would happen. The king has hidden on g8. The rook is about to arrive. This game is insane. It's a very complex position. Queen e3, knight d7. Uh-oh, who's guarding this? Well, Vidit decides rook c1. But now b6. opening the position with your queen there because the knight is hanging. So Vidit plays bishop f3, attacking the rook, and just very calm, sober move, rook b8. Wait a minute. Now this rook is also going to patrol the 6th rank. Somehow Gukesh has figured out his position completely. I mean, think about it. He figured out how to configure the queen side, the king side, and the middle. Everything was broken like 7-8 moves ago. Now it's all tied together. Momentum is shifting. Vidit backs up with the knight to defend c5. Bishop f5 immediately pins the knight to the king. The king moves out of the pin. Rook e6 now pins the knight to the queen. cb6, best move. Now, stunning move here from Gukesh. Not taking, of course he cannot take back. He cannot take back, but he plays queen e5. Stunning move. And by the way, that rook is about to double up with the b-rook on the b2 pawn with the queen in the center. What is going on? Best move here for white is the insane b7. b7. Threatening rook c8, and if you take, I still infiltrate. And you don't get to connect your rooks. I'm faster than you now. But Vidit plays this. We have rook eb6. And here, Vidit plays knight to g3. And, queen takes. And it's just, I'm assuming, a blunder in low time. He must have thought that, maybe he thought takes, knight g3, but I mean, this is also rook b2 is coming, very dangerous. But at least you have an attack on the bishop this way. Maybe he mixed up his move order, but it happens. Massive momentum shift from, in this game. Incredible defense from Gukesh, very creative defense. And he ends the game by lining up the 2 rooks. That h-rook managed to travel the entire board and be the chief attacking piece on the b2 pawn. And it was in this position, down the knight. Of course, after the blunder, probably in a time scramble, Vidit resigned. And listen, I know I have a lot of viewers from India, folks. I'm really sorry I have to show how good Gukesh is at the cost of showing Vidit losing. But this guy is so good, and you will be very happy with who the Faceless Destroyer is. But before we get to that, I would like to show you the game Alireza Firouzja versus Ding Liren. Because this is the first tournament in the Champions Chess Tour that Ding Liren gets to play at a normal time. He gets to eat, sleep, chess, repeat, and he's not up till 4 in the morning playing. Alireza plays a London system, c5 most critical response, e3, e6, and this line. Now, nowadays, you can basically play the queen to b6 at any moment in the London. Not here, because you cannot kangaroo over a pawn. But in this moment, and and even after you put the knight on c6. So rook b1, bishop d6. This is some fusion system, delaying the movement of the knight on b8, which is not very common. And Alireza plays b4. Now, this looks like definitely white is for choice. I mean, this variation of the London, it looks like white is getting some initiative on the queen side. I mean, the position is still very much balanced, but I don't know why you would give white all this opportunity. Takes. Now, like again, it seems like you're just getting pushed back. Queen b3, bishop b7, castles. Okay, everything has been developed. What is the count? We have traded our c and d pawns. Pawn structure is completely symmetrical. A, B, and then EFGH. 2 knights and bishop, no dark squared bishop. Now, the game will probably be played over here. On the open files, on the queen side. We also could kind of have a mutual stalemate, in the sense that if white expands in the center, black immediately outflanks, and if black expands in the center, white just immediately pressures this. So, okay, knight d4, of course, bringing the knight. And now here come the rooks, and okay, here come the rooks. But Alireza makes the decision to play e4. If Alireza had just sat in this position and chilled, Ding Liren probably would have played queen g5 and tried to instigate with his queen, bishop, the knights. But Alireza goes here, here, and here, building a little wall against this bishop. But now Ding Liren has something to play for, and folks, the clouds open up once again. H5. Rook b2 and actually h4. So now it's not so simple to play the move g3. Spoiler alert, he will in a few moves, but only because Ding Liren played h3 himself. So h5, h4 clamps down. If you had gone g3 here, I actually wouldn't take at all. I mean, I can take, but I would probably go here, pinning you. And that's even worse. And if you play rook g2, well, I would just take your rook, so that's bad. So he plays h3 and g3, softening up the structure. But how is Ding Liren actually going to break into the position? I mean, Alireza has everything protected. Queen f6, the ever so slight adding of pressure. Rook to f2, and now a very tricky move, b5. And everything is about to explode. The center, the queen side, the king side. I said the wrong side of the board when I highlighted, I apologize. So, very unpleasant position. A takes b5. A takes b5, knight takes e5, knight takes e5, knight takes b5, instant replay. A takes b5, A takes b5, and here, apparently, Alireza had knight d6, which at first the computer shows as a fork. But then after the counter-attacking move, rook c3, danger levels, which Ding Liren has watched that video of mine like multiple times, knight f3 is coming, and you just leave these pieces to die for the greater good, and you arrive and you deliver some attack. Sometimes computer at a low depth will spout out like, well, actually, there's this move. But then you let it think, and it's like, no. Knight takes e5, knight b5, and rook c1. So Ding Liren has sacrificed the pawn and has allowed an active knight to attack his bishop. But here plays the ultra super cold-blooded queen e7. Knight b7 would be met with queen b7, and white cannot deal with these pieces. And you know who the MVP of black's position is? It's not the pieces. It's the pawn on h3. Like, you could just push this pawn all the way down, and it just covers the king's escape and paralyzes white's position. So instead of engaging in that, Alireza plays this, but now the bishop, even though it didn't get taken, still activates by playing bishop to a6. Bishop to a6. And the craziest part, if you play b5, this queen, which went from f6 to e7 to defend the bishop, now goes queen a7. What a move. What an absolutely stunning move, and the game is over. You can cocoon defense, but now... You know what? No, the game is actually not over after bishop a6 and queen a7. It's over after the next kill shot. Queen b6. Just such a mean move. You cannot take because you lose your queen, and frankly, you have no moves. Your rook is now paralyzed to your king. This is paralyzed, and if you move your knight, like to e8, for example... Bishop takes b5, and it's over. And the game ends after queen b6, queen a3, and rook back to c2, and nobody can protect this. Ding Liren just savagely, and I mean savagely, beat down Alireza Firouzja. I love Firouzja. I love his, but that was crazy. I mean, Ding Liren is like, what's up? I am playing these games at a normal time. Ya can't mess with me. And I'm assuming he's clapping his hands as these games are going on. You should make the games at a normal time more. And maybe I won't have bad tournaments. Brrr. Goes like, does his best Joker impression. And now, folks, allow me to show you the final game of the day between Arjun Erigaisi and Hou Yifan. Hou Yifan, the highest rated active. Actually, I don't know if she's considered active chess player anymore because she took some years off to go back to university. I believe she's at Oxford or Cambridge. I think it's Oxford, though. And she was the women's world champion. And she was invited. She was invited to play. And listen, I gotta give her credit because jumping into this absolute death ring of players after a university study and not being actively competing for years, I mean, yeah, it's brutal. I just came back to a classical chess tournament. I'm nowhere near at this level, and I was tired. I can't imagine what she's feeling. Arjun Erigaisi got all his IM and GM norms in the span of like 6 months, like 2 years ago. So he's a talented player from India. I think he's like 17 or 18. We have a Nimso Indian, E3, castles, bishop D2. This is kind of known as the Pillsbury system. Like E3, bishop D2, bishop D3, you put your bishops out, and then oftentimes you can start some sort of attack over there, depending on how black plays. If black plays D5, you can put this knight on E5. B6, but he plays knight F3. And we have everything I discussed, but Hou Yifan plays knight e4, so she's not gonna let Arjun get, you know, something going here. Takes, and a very nice move d5. This simple pawn move, you would think that black just, you know, well, this is just stupid. But then black plays d5, and you never activate your bishop. So by playing d5 himself, Arjun has the active bishop. This bishop is probably going to have to trade itself or hide out over here and become a target. More on that later. This position, takes, is known to be a little bit more comfortable for white. And that happens, d5, but she plays c5, and the difference is that in this position, you can play the very tricky move knight d2. See, if you play takes, c5, like this knight d2, then bishop takes d5. Huh? So it's a move order thing. You actually cannot play c5 now because the bishop is forced back that way. What did I tell you would happen if the bishop would be standing in front of the king side? It would be a target. If you wanted, by the way, if you want an instant replay there, the bishop was not taken because after check, the king would have to move, and then you would get your own bishop trapped. So tricky, but he just takes and defends his pawn. And again, if takes, oh, look it, I'm so smart, just this, and rook e1, and black resigns. And the bishop is protecting the rook, so you cannot take it. So bishop g6, and what did I say was going to happen to the bishop? It was going to become a target, and now white is going to avalanche down that side of the board. h5, oh, well, h4, h5. By the way, clouds opened up again, h4. This is the 4th out of 5th game, or did we see it in every game? Did Anish play h4? I don't think Anish played h4. No, I don't think Anish played h4. But h4 in this game, and g4. Takes, queen e7, long castles, and the difference here is that this move, which before would lead to checkmate, now would just hang a queen, and you would not win the game at all. So here, actually, Arjun has to go like this. And we emerge in a position where actually material is completely equal. 2 rooks bishop, 2 rooks knight, 6 pawns. However, who is better and why? Who's better and why? White is better. Why is white better here? Levy, because you named the title Faceless Destroyer, and I think this has something to... Hey. Why does white have a better position here? Okay, first of all, what are these pieces doing? It's been 20 moves! These pieces are drunk and asleep in their bunkers. What is going on? But the other problem is that the opening of the G file is really devastating for black. And even though black, for a moment, can defend here, I'm going to play rook g1, and now this move rook g6. Second time you've seen today a rook move to plant, and black is just too slow. Like, black is simply too slow. A move like knight a6, which is played in the game to activate, and it looks like black is just in time. Now, the pawn that just pries out the defense, h6. And the knight has arrived, and actually, in perhaps counterintuitive fashion, Erigaisi doesn't even want the knight here. He trades off his very powerful bishop. And you would say, why would he do that? Why wouldn't he play, like, you know, h takes g7? Well, because then knight takes a2, and then I still can get your bishop. And if you queen, I just take it, and then I save my knight. And the more pawns I get, the closer I can get this to a draw. Rook and knight versus 2 rooks is most likely a draw if there's no pawns involved. So instead, Erigaisi does it like this. And this forces black to defend very carefully. Like, if black had played rook g8 in this position and taken on g7, this is just, I think, a lost king and pawn endgame. I think this is just straight up losing if you take, because you have this h-pawn. So something like king b3, the king has to win this pawn, and then you can take this and march the king and go win that pawn. You don't even have to win those pawns. And I think you're just faster. So I think you can go here, and go win this pawn. Which would be nice, because obviously you can't win the pawn from those squares. So instead we have king g8 and just h5. And a nice seamless transition to a winning rook endgame. h7 is coming. And if you play rook h5, there's a lot of ways to win this. Actually, well, not in this specific position. Not in this specific position. There's a lot of ways to win this endgame. But in this specific position, you actually have to play rook g6. Because if you play f4 and lose this pawn, you're not winning anymore. So rook g6, rook h3, f3, and black resigned here because there's just a simple plan of takes and rook f8. If you play king f7, I will promote to a rook for bad manners, and the game is over. And Arjun Erigaisi finished the second day very, very well. He did lose one game to Levon Aranyan. And tomorrow, I will show a game like by Hoi Fan. She defeated Adiban Bhaskaran today. But they are having tough tournaments. They have 2.5 and 2 points respectively out of 10 games. And tomorrow I might show their games, but I don't want to rub it in if they're having bad days. But I'm going to show an Artemiev game tomorrow as well. But these are your standings. Aranyan and Ding Liren, 7 points. And why I said faceless, look at who's in 7th place. Arjun Erigaisi has a FIDE rapid rating of 2280 because he doesn't play a lot of rapid. 2280, and this dude has 5.5 points out of 10. And he's in 7th. And chess.com does not even have a profile picture for him because they... I guess they don't have a good-looking photo of him in the database. They've got good, professional photos of all the other players because they played in events. Arjun Gaisi hasn't played in that many events. So, Faceless Destroyer. Folks, pleasure as always. Tomorrow we will conclude the preliminaries. 8 of these players will be knocked out. 8 of them will move on to a knockout. Till next time, get out of here.